Alrighty then, this is Mr. Sanders here, and I just got done watching SummerSlam 2012, and I'm going to give my brief opinion on it. Now, I've been kind of high on TNA as of late, and kind of low on WWE as of late. But I gotta say, actually I noticed the card structure, it almost completely had the exact same sort of feel as TNA's last pay-per-view. I forget the Hardcore Justice, which actually kind of says something rather low about TNA, considering they had to get hardcore matches to match this. But anyway, the pre-match show started with Antonio Cesaro versus Santino Marella for the United States Championship. This was like a TV match, you know. It was all right. I gave it 6 out of 10. You know, there were some kind of cool spots, like when Antonio tore up the Cobra, and you just see Santino kind of flip out. But other than that, it felt like a TV match. And they seriously need to let Antonio Cesaro do the Ricola Bomb. His current finisher sucks. I don't care how many people are using the Power Bomb. The Ricola Bomb is awesome. They need to let Antonio use it. But yeah, anyway, I gave it a 6 out of 10. Then the show actually started. And I gotta say, I think Ziggler versus Jericho should have been higher. What I think should have been the opener was Kane versus Daniel Bryan. But Kane versus Chris Jericho versus Ziggler, I could understand it being an opener. And I gotta say, these guys worked a pretty good match. If there's one thing Y2J is really, really good at, it's making somebody else look really good. You see this all the time throughout the years. Like, he's always one of the guys that, the guy who wants to go up a level, you know, he faces Chris Jericho. And this was a really good display of what Ziggler could pull off, and I loved a lot of little moments, but the problem I had with the match was that it was a little spotty. As good as it was at certain times, and as, you know, really, really interesting as it was at times, it just kind of felt like the moments came, and then just not much really happened. And much like Hardcore Justice, a problem with these sort of matches is that they had a lot of medium oomph moments. And the problem when you do something like that is the oomph starts to go away too much, which is why I don't think this was probably the best structured card. But anyway, Jericho versus Ziggler, I'd call it a good match. It's the sort of thing where I actually wrote on my thing. I did this like twice once or twice in Hardcore Justice. I did it like 5 times on this card. I wrote it's either a 7 or an 8 out of 10. It has some really cool moments, and the pacing and the pacing does work, but it doesn't feel as good as it could have been, especially with these two and the amount of time they gave it. And I gotta say, pretty much the exact same thing about Kane and Daniel Bryan, except with less time. Although I will say the one thing about Kane and Daniel Bryan... Oh, wait, I forgot to say. Jericho wins by putting Dolph Ziggler in a sick lion tamer. He pulls out the lion tamer with the knee on Ziggler's head and everything. That was actually a cool ending. But anyway, Kane versus D. Bryan. This was a really good contrasting styles match. You do sort of see... You get a vibe out of each guy's move list when you see this. Like, the way that Daniel Bryan and Kane's moves would just be completely different. And I gotta say, for a heel little guy versus a face good guy, or no, a little bad guy versus a big good guy, this was actually a pretty cool match. And I like how the ending was just sort of a surprise out of nowhere, you know, where the only way Daniel Bryan could beat Kane was actually to pretty much just roll him up and just get a quick win and get the fuck out of there. And I love the segment afterwards where Kane is trying to find Daniel Bryan in the backstage. Josh Matthews tries to interview him, and he points out that Daniel Bryan left as soon as he could. And Kane takes Josh Matthews and throws his ass just like Brock Lesnar did. Oh my god. Oh, that was hilarious. But match itself, I only gave it, I actually wrote down, once again, 7 or 8 out of 10. It's like, when I write that down, it's usually the sign of, it was a good match, but it was like, it's not really one of those matches that I'm like, yeah, that was good, or, ooh, that was good. It's not, it's like that in-betweeny zone. And considering I'm already using very vague terminology, that is rather strange. The next match was Miz versus Remy Stereo for the Intercontinental title. Once again, like Chris Jericho, Remy Stereo is very good at making guys who need establishment look that much better. And Miz is one of those guys. Even with his title reign, he still needs to be more properly established because they haven't really done that great of a job with him, and they buried him so much over the years. But anyway, this was another pretty good match. Like the first one, this was kind of spotty. But at the same time, I loved Miz's heel work, and I loved a lot of the things that Ray did. As I said earlier, Ray can bring things out of guys, and I like how Miz actually pulled out a lot of unique offense against Rey Mysterio. A lot of stuff that he just normally can't do against normal guys, like that backbreaker that Chris Jericho used to do on Rey Mysterio. Miz pulled it out of nowhere, and Miz hasn't really used his straight-up powerbomb that much, but he used it up against Rey Mysterio, and it was actually pretty cool. But the match itself wasn't, like, particularly grand and great. It didn't get a whole lot of time, but I still thought it was... good. Again, I wrote down 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. You know, it's again, you know, it's not quite, but it's ooh, at least. I'm just coming up with stupid ways of describing this. The next match, this match was kind of disappointing. Alberto Del Rio versus Sheamus. This was a good match until the ending. What I liked about this match is that they actually tried to establish a very strong identity. The problem with a lot of these other matches was that it was kind of the slow guy going up against the faster guy. With the exception of even with Chris Jericho versus Dolph Ziggler, because Ziggler would take so much time to show off. It was the quick guy versus the slow guy. And this match did something very different, where each guy was just beating the ever-loving crap out of each other. They were stiffing the ever-loving shit out of themselves. Like, ADR's kicks just hurt to watch. Sheamus's punches, they made your soul bleed. And I liked the way that they established each guys, but the problem was the crowd. Now, I gotta say, the crowd was actually really hot for this. You know, I'd be proud to say that because I'm an LA boy, and, you know, where was this? Staples Center. They were actually hot for most of the matches. The ones that they weren't that hot for was actually Miz versus Rey Mysterio, which I found kind of weird. I thought they would be on board with a white guy versus a Mexican. And, oh my god, I forgot to mention this. Rey Mysterio came out dressed up as Batman. Oh my god, that was epic. But back to ADR versus Sheamus. As I said, this was a good match until the ending. The ending, it was so fucking weird. Basically, Ricardo throws a shoe at Del Rio. Sheamus catches it, smacks ADR with it, and pins him. Now, here's the thing. This crowd is very split. It's kind of split throughout the whole thing. I guess it sort of happens when you get the whitest guy in the world and face him off against a Mexican in Los Angeles. So, they were like, what the fuck? You're trying to establish Sheamus as a good guy and he pulls off this shit? The problem is, he's not that type of charismatic. He's not that type of mischievous. He doesn't have that mischievous vibe that could make this work. CM Punk made this work. Eddie Guerrero made this work beautifully dozens of times. Sheamus, no. He just doesn't make it work that well. And the thing is, in addition to, like, Sheamus' heel work, fucking ADR put his foot on the ropes. Ref didn't catch it. You know, so he goes 1, 2, 3. As soon as the ref, like, finishes that, Sheamus fucking pulls ADR's leg off. So now it's like, what the fuck? Sheamus stole the victory. It's a heel victory for a babyface in a crowd that prefers the heel. So the crowd was just chanting, "Boo! What the fuck happened?" You know, it's sort of the reverse of what happens. Like when you see at a lot of these events, you'll see guys go, you know, it's like, whatever. The heel won. He cheated. So whatever. That's what they always do. But now that the babyface actually cheated, and like you can tell the heel was cheated out of the victory, it's like, what the they got the legit reaction that you usually are supposed to get with this sort of thing, you know, and I don't think they intended that. So another ambiguous rating that I got, I was like, it's either a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10. I was enjoying the match up until the ending, but it does really sour it. That the ending really does sour it. The next match was Kofi Kingston and RTruth versus the Primetime Players. Now, unfortunately, because of his comment about Kobe Bryan, Abraham Saddam Washington was nowhere to be found. I believe he has a Twitter and something like BR something on Twitter, and he has gotten a huge following now. And you can tell this because in the beginning of this match, the chant they were saying was Kobe Bryan. I'm not even kidding. And first of all, that's just fucking hilarious. And afterwards, you would hear Kobe chants, but it's difficult to say whether or not it was Kobe or Kofi. The crowd was pretty hot for this match, but it was pretty much a TV tag team match. It really wasn't anything that special. It's the usual sort of thing with a TV tag match that, you know, there are like one or two interesting spots. The hot tag, you know, RTruth cleans house, Kofi Kingston cleans house. I like a lot of the little things they did with the Primetime Players, and I like how they made Kofi look strong. But honestly, it was a TV match. Kofi Kingston and RTruth retained their tag team championships. I'm not sure entirely if I agree with this, because I think the Primetime Players are pretty much getting the most amount of attention as they possibly can, especially since, you know, Abraham Saddam Washington is now off of them. And the thing is, I think RTruth and Kofi Kingston can do better in the singles competition, especially Kofi Kingston. Push Kofi Kingston or we riot. But honestly, this was pretty much a TV tag match. I gave it a 6 out of 10. Worst match on the card, but honestly, that's not saying much. This is actually a pretty good card, to be honest. The next match. Many have argued this should have been the main event. Your main event is your draw, and what you think will like steal the show, what people will remember the most. But so that's why arguably this isn't the main event. CM Punk versus John Cena versus The Big Show in a triple threat match for the WWE Championship. I gotta say, the breakout star of this, or not really breakout star, the MVP of this was Big Show. Like, the entire match, he was kicking the shit out of CM Punk and John Cena. You know, it really did make me have that sort of feeling like, holy crap, CM Punk and John Cena are gonna have to fight for their victory. I don't like how, you know, it came so soon at the end, but it was still really interesting. I loved how, you know, they really did show how hard CM Punk could fight, how hard CM Punk could work, and John Cena. You know, even though they pulled this out a bit too much with Big Show, I still thought they actually pulled out a lot of really cool stuff with John Cena. I kind of like the double ending they pulled off here. What happened was, I'm getting a phone call. Sorry about that, but yeah, Big Show. Yeah, the double ending of this match. What happened was, CM Punk put Big Show in the Koji clutch, which in and of itself is quite a feat. But then, in addition to that, while he was in the Koji clutch, John Cena put Big Show in the STF, and with both the submissions on, he tapped out. You know, while CM Punk and John Cena were trying to make their case to AJ Lee, who came out to try to resolve the situation, Big Show actually, after they tried to make their situation, she just straight up said, restart the match. You know, I like how I like that it was just like, you know, just fucking restart the match. And I thought it was hilarious that as soon as she did that, Big Show was right behind. CM Punk and John Cena with a look of "Gotcha, bitch," and set him up for the double choke slam. And they, of course, they both kicked out. And I actually really liked the ending. If you're trying to push if you're trying to push CM Punk as a more heel, or progressing to become a bigger and bigger heel, it's actually a really good way to do it. Cena hits Big Show with the attitude adjustment. As soon as he does that, CM Punk pulls fucking hell. Ah, shit, I just got interrupted again. Fucking hell. But if I'm not mistaken, what I was saying was that John Cena set up Big Show to be hit with the attitude adjustment. And, as soon as he did that, CM Punk was right there, and he pushed, Cena out of the ring and just pinned Big Show right there for the win. So, CM Punk is still your champion, and I believe he's creeping in on JBL's 280-day record for being the champion, which is pretty freaking cool, actually. But where do they go from here? John Cena, of course, could argue that he won the match, so it could be another John Cena versus CM Punk, which I think we might have seen a bit too much at this point. But I'm not really sure where else they could go. I think they really need somebody else up there in the WWE title picture, because it's been Cena, CM Punk, and Big Show for way too long. They need a new guy. All right. Now, before the main event, they had a Kevin Rudolph concert. As soon as I fucking heard, oh, Kevin Rudolph, I immediately muted it, and I went back to check a couple times, and I noticed they put the divas out there as dancers. I'll admit that WWE doesn't really know how to present women wrestlers, but if you're gonna have a women's division, don't just fucking present them as just their personal strippers. All right, if that's pretty much what they've become. They've become kind of trophy-esque. This is what happens when your regime essentially ends up looking for people and trying to get them, just as looking presentation first and wrestling second. It just happens, and honestly, it just makes me sad. And kind of a hilarious interlude. They went out of the crowd. Every time they're in LA, they always look out of the crowd and look out for stars. They saw David Arquette, which made me laugh, and I can't remember who it was, but when they put somebody on, the dude put up the middle finger at the camera, and for some reason they muted it. I don't think WWE knows how the laws of physics work. But the last match on the card was Triple H versus Brock Lesnar. Now, the thing about this match that I think may change people's opinions is whether or not you like Triple H. If you like Triple H, it can be very it can have that right type of disheartening where you're like, come on, he just has to come out and overcome this progressively worse and worse monster. But the problem is, I don't like Triple H. I don't think a lot of people like Triple H. The more people like me have heard about Triple H, the less we like about him. The more we see him in our faces, the more we just want him the fuck out. To be honest, the only reason his last couple of matches have been very good was because they were with the fucking Undertaker. And Undertaker makes everybody look good. And the other problem with this match for me was also, you could very clearly tell Brock Lesnar was limited. And no, I don't mean that Brock Lesnar can't wrestle or anything. I mean, you could very much tell they did not allow him to do everything. In the first match, you saw him throwing punches, doing all sorts of suplexes. In this one, he didn't do either one of them. You could tell it's like, oh, no. You could kind of tell Triple H asked him, no, you can't throw the punches at me. I know you're going to make me bleed. And I'm not going to allow that. Okay, I'm going to stop that. But, yeah, that sort of stopped it because you could tell Lesnar didn't know what to do in the meantime. He had to do the same couple of moves too much. And I think it was because it was the only ones he knew that WWE would allow him to use. I felt kind of bad for Brock because I was like, you kind of had the feeling is like, what else can I do? They're not letting me do anything, so they're just letting me do what I know I can like hold back on. Like the most brutal move he did was a fucking arm lock body slam, which actually did look pretty good because Triple H is pretty good at selling pain, but it wasn't like the best thing. My big problem with most of the match was that it was a little too slow. It really picked up around the end, but it was just way the fuck too slow, and it was not brutal enough. And the other thing was, Brock Lesnar was not portrayed as like this big hulking monster. They portrayed fucking Triple H and Brock Lesnar like they were equals. What the fuck? This is supposed to be the baddest dude on the planet, you know, and he's not, and he's fucking equals with Triple H. Give me a fucking break, you know. But this match does get some points with me because of the ending. Like the ending, I really like the ending where, you know, it's like, oh, like Lesnar hits the F5, Triple H kicks out. I sort of expected that. Triple H hits a pedigree. I actually expected it to end there because I'm like, yeah, Triple H would fucking end Brock Lesnar with one pedigree because that's how he would fucking book it. But he actually kicked out, you know. And then later when he hit him with a second pedigree, actually, another moment that actually stunned me was when I saw Brock Lesnar hit a low blow on Triple H. And it says something about a low blow when it actually makes the guy leave the ground. You know, that's a pretty epic low blow. But actually when Triple H hit a second pedigree, I thought, yeah, that's it. And then Lesnar, like, shifted his position just right so that he actually put in a surprise Kimura. You know, the Kimura was used way too much, but this one was actually really well placed because he was already on the ground in the perfect position, you know, fucking body scissor the guy, and it actually really worked, you know. And to my surprise, Triple H tapped out. You know, I was like, yes, yes, yes. As soon as I saw that, you know, I'm like, Brock was brought in. He was brought in with like two very recognizable names, and you know, he was they kind of wimped out on him for John Cena, and they really wimped out on him for Triple H. But I like that they at least made him win. Now, a lot of people have speculated that what they want to do with The Undertaker is bring him in for WrestleMania 29 and have him face Brock Lesnar. You know, that would be really, really cool. And here's the thing. Triple H is not the best at making other guys look good. Undertaker, though, can make everybody look good. He can take somebody who's on the worst day of their life and make them have a great match. So I would love to see that. And I love how they tried to make Triple H feel so sad, you know. And you heard guys in the audience. I was cheering with them. I was in the audience, but I was at my monitor, and I was cheering with them. You tapped out. You tapped out. You tapped out. I would have started chanting, just retire. Just retire. And eventually a lot of the crowd did start, you know, trying to Triple H. And I was like, eh. The crowd really didn't seem into this match. And I think the problem is they're relying on the fact that Triple H needs to be liked in order for this to be dramatic. And no, sir, no. Try to present yourself like one of the top 3 wrestlers ever, and you're probably not even in the top 15. But, yeah, I'm not sure how well that really brings up this match. The match was kind of boring, but at the same time, it did have kind of a visceral sense of brutality about it that does kind of bring it up and does make it feel very unique. Even in the way that Alberto Del Rio versus Sheamus didn't have. So, a unique style, but a really slow pace. A good ending, but a kind of unlikable good guy. How do you really put this up? I kind of put it as like 7 out of 10 because there were a lot of really cool spots that I did enjoy. But, you know, again, the pace was just really, really fucking slow. And I felt sorry for Lesnar. But anyway, that's SummerSlam 2012. How would I rate it overall? Well, exactly like Hardcore Justice, this has the problem that everything's supposed to be building up. You know, and it kind of does, but the problem is the main event didn't deliver well enough. You know, there are a lot of really cool early matches, and there were a lot of really cool little things. but it just doesn't deliver. But I will say this was a good SummerSlam. I would call it a good SummerSlam. For one of the major three, for one of the big four pay-per-views, I would say, yeah, good. This is a viewer. I'm not sure whether or not it's like, buy the DVD. I would say, if I watched that, I'd be like, yeah, that was cool. But I'm not going to say, mark out moment, or anything like that. Especially considering, unlike, say, Extreme Rules or Over the Limit, where oh no, not Over the Limit. Extreme Rules, or what was the one after that? Shit. Was it Over the Limit? Fuck. Yeah, I think it was Over the Limit, where there were several match of the year contenders. This one, I don't see it out of any of the matches. Not even Cena, Big Show, Punk, which was my favorite of this. And first of all, I like that there wasn't that much padding, especially compared to fucking No Way Out. But yeah, it still didn't feel quite as full. So how would I overall rate it? Same rating I gave it, Hardcore Justice, 7 out of 10. It could have been better, but it was still good. So yeah, that was SummerSlam 2012. I believe the next one they set up was it Hell in a Cell? Well, whatever. Well, I'll see it when it comes. If you're wondering why I missed Money in the Bank, I was at Comic-Con during that week, so I couldn't watch it. So sorry about that. But anyway, this has been Mr. Sanders, and I'll catch you guys later.